How's it going, everyone? Happy Easter, and welcome back to another weekly watch list. Took last week away. I was away for a wedding, so we're back at it with the watch list this week. Super pumped. Started my futures trading account with Lucid, 50K Flex, 2 weeks ago, and it's been going really nice so far. Up about $580 on the account, and have taken 10 trades, 8 winners, 2 losers. It's been really nice. I've really been loving the way that futures move in my system. You know, I'm able to have, it's a little bit more simpler to set stops, targets, trail, trim, right? And also the movement, you know, like I need less of a move in futures to take a trim or even reach 1R, 2R than in options, especially with 1 to 3 days to expiration, which is what I've been day trading, mostly 1 day till expiration, but I don't trade 0 day till expiration. So on a 0 day till expiration, probably would be a little bit closer to moving on futures. And that does have me thinking that, hey, maybe with the discipline that I've built in trading, maybe it's okay for me to reintroduce 0 DTE again on a more regular basis. It's just something that I shadow banned December of 2024 when I had my biggest blow up day. And I have not even broken a trading rule since that day at all. And I just, wonder if it's just a fear that I no longer have to hold anymore. So any thoughts on that, feel free to comment below. All right, let's get into it. We'll start off with NQ here. Previous day high, previous day low, main areas to watch. I have this 24,000 and pivot at 24,035 that I'll be watching as well. We're back in this kind of like crazy news candle that we had 2 weeks ago range. So definitely would like to see smoother action over this 24,763. But that's going to be the areas I'm watching over the previous day high. My next resistance is right above at 24,348. So I'd really like to see price get over that before moving up to my next resistance zone at 24,525. Okay. As far as support goes, I'll be watching puts underneath 24,000 back towards the previous day low. Below that, I have these former highs right here. I'm actually just going to get rid of that zone, just keep it as a level, as a potential pivot on the way down to my next major support at 23,376. And then below that, all the way down here at these news lows or the sell-off lows from the beginning of last week, Sunday, down about 23,000. All right. If I zoom out a little bit to the hourly, again, there's a little more chop up here. Let's maybe go over to the 4-hour. Man, that is just so ugly. We need to get up and through this range as quickly as possible. But yeah, like over the previous day high, over this resistance zone at 24,525, it's a little ugly up here. So, I mean, being back in this range is just disgusting. So there's a lot of zones up here. There's a lot of previous day highs. My hope is that if we get over this, we get through it. Maybe in like 2 days, we get 2 nuker days or something. We get over 25,538. Because over that, it's a lot smoother, all right? Let's go over to ES, all right? And I'll take it back down to a 30-minute time frame, previous day high, previous day low. I have this pivot at 6,600 in between. Same plan. I'll be watching puts underneath 6,600 and this pivot down to previous day low. Under that, I have 6,500. And again, those 1-hour highs, 1-hour lows, this pivot here between 6,500 and 6,483. Below that, I'll be watching puts down on my next support at 6,446. As far as upside goes, I'll watch calls over the previous day high and 66.54. We have a little bit of room up to 66.84 and then 6,700, which seems more likely. And then, of course, the high of that prior news candle here at 67.48. All right, that's as far as I'll go for now. SPY and QQQ are going to look very similar, of course. So, again, I'll be watching calls over previous day high, but we do have 663 resistance right above. And that just comes from a prior day high. That was here from a couple weeks ago, okay? And again, it's really above that. We have that news candle and Monday's low from a couple weeks ago at 667.10. So again, I'm watching longs over previous day high and the daily 200 SMA as well at 660, but I am aware of 663 high, 667 on the way up to December's low at 669, 670, right? And we have a couple daily gap closes above as well. That could be potential targets for the market to get to. This daily gap close up here, of course, at 670. This one up here at 676 if the market does want to go ahead, fill those gaps. As far as downside goes, I'll watch puts underneath 650, this pivot here. to the previous day low, and underneath the previous day low, my next major support is at 637.97, but some pivots along the way as well, one of which being this zone here at 640, 641, and of course just this little high right here at 642. If I'm in shorts underneath the previous day low, I could look to scale out at 642. That's why it's there. Let's go over to QQQ. Same thing here. I'll watch puts underneath the zone. I actually do want to mark that out real quick while we're here. It'll be this pivot right here. See this high, see this low, see this high here is a pre-market high. Simply just label this a pivot, and any levels that for me are not previous day high or lows, I simply just make in a very faint gray color. So I go here, I go to more, HSL, this is on Thinkorswim by the way, make that faint, that way it doesn't clog up the chart. So very simple. Again, same thing here. Underneath the previous day low, I'll be watching puts down to 564.24, but this pivot of 568 along the way. Over the previous day high, I'll be watching calls, but we have our next resistance up at 591.45. Again, this is just another previous day high, right? With the daily 200 above that as well. This is my main area to watch, 597. The high of this, that news candle, that's where I'm looking at. We're trading back inside that range here where you can see how choppy it was here. Upside looks a lot better over 595 to 597, right? To fill this space up to 600. That looks a lot better, all right? Let's go over to individuals. We'll start off with Apple. Pretty simple levels here. Previous day high, previous day low. I'll be watching puts underneath the previous day low down to 247.11. Calls over the previous day high and 257 up to 258.97 and 259.55. Tesla, pretty simple again. Previous day high, previous day low. Ideally over the previous day high, I'd be watching calls, but over 374.18 as well, as this was another high as well, up to 384. Puts below the previous day low. You can see how simple I keep it in the system. Break and retest these levels is how I trade. AMD, pretty big range here, so definitely an interesting spot for AMD. As far as levels go, previous day high and previous day low, as always, in white. I'll be watching puts underneath this pivot, okay, at 209.28. This was a very key area. It's showing it a lot on the 4-hour and the 1-hour. This is something that I took a trade on, I believe, Friday, but you can see here, low, low, high, 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 high. And on the intraday, I believe it was Friday or Thursday. I think it was this trade right here. Yeah, we were in longs, I was in longs here around 10 a.m., but ended up getting, was it here? Somewhere around here. But nonetheless, ended up getting stopped out after profit. I think we pushed up, got a 1-hour trim, stopped out here, but it held really nicely, this zone, and it ripped to highs. So that was nice, just missed out on that larger move. But as far as upside goes, over the previous day high and 221.29 is where I'll be watching calls. I do need to zoom out a little bit more. If we get over that, and we're over the daily 100, my next resistance zone is going to be up at 227.14. So decent amount of room up from 221. I'll definitely be watching that. As far as downside goes, all right, let's go back to the hourly here. I'll be watching puts underneath the previous day low at 261 down to 196.35. All right, let's go over to Nvidia. So let's get that in there. Nvidia really clean looking. So I'll watch calls over previous day high. See, this is what I want to see, right? You have a nice open space here. That's it. We have a clear high. We have our previous day high. I want to be watching longs in this area to complete that move up. Previous day low. Underneath the previous day low, my next major support's at 166.82. We have this 1-hour pivot I'll be watching along the way as well. So if we are looking at shorts, I'll be watching puts underneath the previous day low down to 166 with maybe a pit stop at 169. Let's wrap it up with Google and Amazon. Google's been strong. This is a really nice move here. Anything that Warren Buffett is heavily in, I believe was it Buffett? Can't remember if it was Buffett or not. Just has major leaps on Google, but nonetheless, strong stock, strong company, obviously. Over the previous day high, see this is where I'll wait. I'm not trying to catch a move between 298 and 300, especially 300 being a whole psych number. I want to see us get over 300. We're actually going to get rid of this. No longer a gap anymore. But over 300, definitely will take a shot here. We break and retest over this high here. I'm definitely willing to take a shot on that up to my next resistance zone at 306. All right, as far as downside goes, I'll watch underneath the previous day low and 287.55. We'll get rid of this gap as well. Down to my next major support at 276.83. And then Amazon. Need Amazon to stay strong. I got leaps on this thing. All right, I got June expiration I bought in January. So not necessarily a leap, but a longer option. But definitely want to see that. And then I also have an Amazon leap for June of next year. So over the previous day high and 213.56, I'll be watching calls up to the next resistance at 215.14 up to 217, and then of course 220. As far as downside goes, again, not enough room down here, so I'll be watching puts underneath the previous day low and 204.16, 203.81. Below that, my next support is going to be down at 200 essentially. So that's all I'll be watching. So that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please consider dropping a like, commenting, subscribing to the channel. It would mean the absolute world to me. Happy Easter, and I'm wishing you all a blessed and great week inside and outside the market. I'll see you in the next watch list. Peace.